report. I wanted to, in no specific order, but well, this one is specifically picked. Last night we had the third of four about the related culturally responsive sustaining education. It ended with the 45-minute open Q&A, which was exhausted. It ended at the point that nobody raised their hand or there were no other comments. So it was free flowing. A lot of tough questions, some not answered. I'm confident to the satisfaction of the person who asked the question, but to which it will be published in terms of getting more information and put on the Q&A, so you can look to that. But I thought, what an excellent turnout, what an excellent discussion to be able to have those tough questions, to have people show up who were interested and wanted to really know what was going on and be able to view all the different books that were out there and get a good understanding, and then be able to sit down with the administration, the teachers, and ask those types of questions. So that is being offered for those who want to take advantage of it. I highlight again the wall of distinction. In terms of keeping with the mantra celebration, that was an incredible night for both reasons that Sarah Grover pointed out. The students were amazing, and they introduced amazing people. And what was amazing about it, if you didn't attend the Wall of Distinction ceremony or didn't get to see it, is its diversity in terms of the positions that existed in the district, right? That we had a transportation, and you think in a Wall of Distinction, who's going to be favored? Likely, no offense to our teachers, right? But it seems like you're going to be the most favored. And yet we had teachers' aides and secretaries, paras, a century. It was incredible diversity in terms of everybody who was employed by the district and all the different bargaining units that are represented. They take pride in what they do, and they impact the students when they pick them up at the school bus, right? That they're smiling and welcoming them onto the bus to the moment they walk through the school doors, that they have a century who cares about them. And then within the classroom itself, it's always amazing to me that we have great representation at our Wall of Distinction ceremony. It was great to hear concerts again. I listened to my son's concert during the COVID and at home, and you know, you can only do a recording so well when the camera and the microphone seems to be by the percussion. You can't hear all the other instruments. My son's a percussionist, so I kind of appreciated that in some ways, but I know the other parents didn't. And now to come back and in person, you know, it's amazing what you can take for granted, and that to have the concerts coming back was amazing. Theaters, again, amazing to have the plays going on. Loving it. What a great last month. Service efforts, to get a tweet. My family didn't participate this year. We have in the past. I don't have any children there at Martha Brown anymore, but 2 busloads, not just one in the years we participated, 2 busloads of students and families helping rake leaves for veterans. Thank you for that community type service and civic engagement. I so appreciate that, Mr. Dunn. But that's not the only one. I hate sometimes pointing out one thing because it's a sliver of all that is going on. I think we'll hear more and wanting in our bright spots that what's happening, the amount of money that is being raised. We heard about $1,000 worth of this, $14,000 worth going to, was it Galisano, right? I mean, the amount of money that our students raise, and it doesn't talk about what the PTAs are doing to raise for the different clubs and everything else. This is what the students raise in order to donate to other people and other organizations throughout the community, the Parent and Food Shelf. I just always amazed and touched by all that is done. I wanted to open a little bit for 2 things. One, I always open up for any committee reports that the board members sit on. But before we get to that part, we did visit Martha Brown this month. We visit one school a month. One, it is our responsibility to do that. And we were able to start going back in mass where we were doing it just 2 at a time. What a great visit to Martha Brown. It was great to be with the students as they guide us around the schools, as we get to ask them in a setting they probably don't get very often, to say, hey, what would you like to see of improvements? What are your best parts? A testament again to our staff that they said, you know, even during COVID, even when they weren't coming in every day, they knew that our staff cared about them. They could get that through the videos. They could get that when they did come in a couple days a week, and they know they care about them this year, and they feel supported. Now, we know that's not everybody. We know there's mental health challenges that have been increasing for years, even pre-COVID, but grateful that we have a staff and a community who supports when we put the budget out there, increasing the mental health supports and being able to put wraparound services. Students are feeling it. They express that gratitude, I think, across the board, if I'm not mistaken, right? It was across the board. We each asked independently. I don't think we got together and say, let's ask these questions. We don't do that. But we ended up asking that question, and they all came back with the very same answer. So great visit. Anybody else want to chime in on their Martha Brown visit experience?
just to agree that it was excellent and asking the students what they would change about the school. My two said absolutely nothing. And what they loved the most was the dedication of their teachers. So really, they were, as they looked forward to moving on next year, very sad to think of not being at Martha Brown anymore.
I heard the same from my two, and although they did say some changes to the lunch menu, they would make some changes there. I think popcorn chicken they wanted more of, but just the innovation, just popping into different teachers' classrooms, and they're just in their flow. And when you see that magic happening between students and teacher, it's just wonderful. I mean, it was the day before Halloween, and one social studies classroom I walked into had been talking about the lost colony of Roanoke, and he had related it to now being in a zombie apocalypse. So you have to figure out what supplies you need. And so it was that connection to the lost colony of Roanoke didn't have the supplies they needed and what happened there. And so kind of brainstorming in this and kind of that innovative and fun way. It was just wonderful to be there and see the kids doing their magic.
Great, thanks for sharing that. And then committee reports.
So really quickly, I want to give an update on the Sustainability Advisory Committee that Dr. T and I have been working with some really great students over the past few months. They came and spoke at a board workshop in October and really lit a fire under us as a board, reminding us how important sustainability is, not just to consider, but as a guiding principle in our decisions. And so just as a quick update, we are meeting again tomorrow, and then later this month, the student team is doing great work. They're reaching out to students at Brighton who have a similar committee to get kind of brainstorm ideas and kind of see what they can do. The students are working primarily in the cafeteria, trying to figure out what's recyclable, what they can do to combat food waste, that kind of thing. Really good, and I think as a board, we're starting to kind of address. They're looking to, and Tanya, you can please correct me or add anything, but they're looking at kind of the small things that they can do actively to make a difference immediately in the schools. And the challenge for us as a board, which we're embracing, is kind of taking this out and looking at this as a long-term district-wide.
Thanks for being part of that. Keep our word back to those students who presented to us and tell us how important it is to the younger generation that we do a better job as adults in that area. Are there other committee reports? Yep.
I had the pleasure of going to Information Exchange along with Brett and Tanya, where we had a presentation from the Holly Central School District. They are in a pilot of a new program with New York State to offer a seal of civic readiness on the diploma for graduates, but also the possibility of developing it as a major, so to speak. That's my old-fashioned word. Brett and Tanya, you have the better language for what it is now. But basically, that coursework could begin as early as middle school. A lot of the work that they talked about we have in place. We just need some fine-tuning or expansion to do. But it was a very exciting concept. They spoke with great enthusiasm. They are a pilot school district in this program in New York State. So I'm looking forward to hearing more about that and how we could have that in Fairport.
Great.
At Legislative Committee, we reviewed some of our position papers and updating them, and they'll be on the website when they're all approved and everything. And there was a debrief from the convention, which we all know was virtual, and that is online, so we can go back and hear the speeches. People felt that the speeches were really important and well done. I have not gone back to listen yet, but we can do that, so. They advise that we do that if we haven't already.
Great,
and
thank you.
We're not going to Albany, in case anybody was wondering, in next month. So that's, which we normally do, but we won't be doing that yet another year.
But February, or is it March? Or
The
is...
December meeting. I don't know.
No,
what
I know,
we'll
but our
do
next
about
one.
the two. I'm not sure what we'll do about that one, but
okay.
The December is canceled.
Right. Okay, and I believe Labor Relations Committee is tomorrow, so nothing necessarily to report on that one. It's a day late. Anything else? No, then we will go on for the superintendent's report.
Caught me in the end of this. Thank you, all. I want to start off by saying I just feel compelled. I had this at the last slide, but I put it right in the beginning. this wonderful holiday that we have coming up, Thanksgiving. We all have something for which to be thankful. And I just think it's important that we all take a moment and pause to ourselves and reflect upon what we're grateful for and what we're going to be giving Thanksgiving to this upcoming week. We're thankful for our students. We're back in business. We're thankful for all the wonderful bright spots that we've been able to share. I would like to bring notice to this chart that I copied off the New York State Department of Health. It's our daily COVID profile, which we upload and which community has access to. It's on our website. You just type in our school district, but you'll see that we have a total number of 195 to date of students and teachers and staff who've tested positive. Right now in Monroe County, there is a high infection rate, 7.7%. It's much higher than what it was last year at this time. I have the opportunity to network with some Monroe County Department of Health professionals. The number, sure, it's high, but one of their major benchmarks is this concept of the hospitalization rate and making sure that we're able to manage the hospitalization rate, that our medical professionals and community doesn't get overwhelmed. So COVID is a different disease than what it was last year, right? Because of the vaccine, it's a game changer. And again, I'm not an expert. I'm just parroting back from the notes that I received. We know that there's much more therapies. We know that masking works. We know that our schools are safe places based upon our testing. We know that when there is an infection with one of our students or staff members, that the infection wasn't originated for the most part, a great majority of the time, not in school. So those are all good factors. We know that the vaccine rate amongst our 7th through 12th graders is tops amongst the county. It's not a competition. It's definitely not a competition. However, it does speak to our community's thoughts around the vaccination. We know that 5 through 11-year-olders are up now to have the prospects of a vaccination, and that's a family choice. But we also know that there's been interest throughout our community. So yes, we are in the middle of a surge. The Delta variant is caught up to us here in this part of Monroe County in particular. And I just offer that as an initial conversation or a springboard for the board to comment on.
So our promise with the masking policy here in our district was we were going to review it every 5 weeks. So we're ending quarter 1 right now with a over 7% infection rate. I think it's pretty confident to say we're continuing on with the masking policy.
Every 5 to 7 weeks, we will be reviewing it. I sent one out a couple weeks back. I anticipate that I'll be sharing similar information and an update to the community in the very near future.
Right, my mic's not working.
Here you go, want to jump in?
So, just regarding the rapid testing machines that we have in the district, can you talk a little bit about how many tests we've administered and factually how many kids we've tested negative that have been allowed to return back to school, and then extrapolate, you multiply that by 10, that's hundreds of student days that would be missed if we didn't have those machines.
Yeah, we are very clear. We want our students in school, as you see from all the joy and wonder and activity and engagement with our excellent educators. Our students do best in school. We know, based upon our COVID testing clinic, we're very proud of that incredible effort that is currently underway on Monday, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. And the times are well documented. But you can see the number of students that we've had, 40, 32, 54, 44, 38, 52. That's a total of 260 students tested. 246 of those had a negative result, 14 with a positive result to date. So what that does is it saves kids from quarantining. It keeps kids in school. It's an incredible community service that we're going to continue to build upon as we move along. It's a PCR-supported test, which gives the validation and supports the Monroe County's expectations.
Brett, I'm sorry, Damon. Just to clarify, those 246 kids, those are the ones who were able to go right back to school without having to go to a doctor, wait for
As long as
Test
they
them.
didn't have a fever, yes.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
clarify.
And I-
No,
Yes,
I'm being
yes, thank you,
silly.
Eric. Thank you.
But
Yeah.
that's 100% correct. These students were able to come right back
Thanks.
to school the next day.
Yep.
Yes, monitoring their symptoms. If you have a fever, flu-like, you definitely need to see your pediatrician.
Yeah, and I would just say, as a parent of someone whose child had a stomach ache and a headache at school and came home and had to get the test, it was much easier going right to Minerva. It was just amazing, as opposed to 2 weeks prior when I had to call numerous urgent cares. Our pediatrician didn't have any PCR testing. We had to drive across the county to find a test to have my son tested so he could go back. So, and that I could do because I work from home, but not all parents can. So I just think it's huge that it's available so we can get kids back at school, as opposed to having to sit home and wait the days that they have
No,
to.
really,
So
that's a great move doing that, getting those machines in district to be able to administer those tests. I have a grandson right now that goes to school in a different district. His entire class is quarantined now for 10 days.
right, which is another plus that
Yeah.
we aren't currently seeing that situation.
We do know that of the breakthrough cases in Monroe County, we understand that approximately 30% are those who are vaccinated. But they're finding that those breakthrough cases are individuals who may have gotten the vaccine early on, like the January, February, March range. And again, that's why if you are working directly with children, the booster is a viable option to consider. Contact your healthcare professional, and that's continuing to be our message with our staff, so they're well informed and have a strong wellness plan. All these tests, all the resources are supported by grants through the New York State and the federal dollars as well. So it is a new cost center, but it is supported by dollars through the federal grant and New York State grants.
Worth it for the 246 students that could return. And
Right, they
even
don't have
let the
to
other
sit out.
14 know that they have it.
These kids were sitting out for 10 days or whatever the quarantine warranted.
Well, and I think just for the kids with symptoms, when you don't know and they haven't been in contact with somebody, like for mine, we were out of kindergarten for 3 days because she came home one day with just a runny nose and a little cough, got the test that afternoon, and then it was 2 days waiting for the test results. No fever, no anything, and then she was feeling better by the next day, but you're keeping them home to be safe. So this is that same night you get those results. And if your kid doesn't have a fever and feeling better the next day, you can head back to school.
Could I just add something? Sorry. As we're talking about the PCR clinic, just be sure that you're checking Parent Square before you head to the clinic. We have maxed out a couple times on the amount of tests that we're able to do. So before you head there, make sure that we're still open. We'll announce that on Parent Square if we have to close early due to maximum capacity. And then next week for the holiday, we will be open Monday and Saturday. No Wednesday session. I'll put that out on Parent Square as well. But we'll be open just Monday and Saturday during the holiday week.
Excellent point. We have 8 machines. District our size requires 8 machines, but you can only do 2 tests every hour with those machines. So, that's at our full capacity.
Brett, I was just going to go back when we were talking about the masking, and I know that is a concern of many of our families. I did want to point out that we are trying to get guideposts and information on what would happen to not have to be wearing them all the time. So it's not that we're not looking to find out that information. Unfortunately, in the process of trying to get more feedback from the state, from the county on when we can stop for various reasons. I mean, I used to be a first grade teacher. Kids need to be able to see when they're learning to read. There's many reasons why, and we feel that too. Unfortunately, in the process of pushing to get that information, our rates are going back up. So we'll continue to do that advocacy, but at this time, we just have to stay the path and keep reviewing it every 5 weeks. But
So-
I just wanted to,
So last year I was really hopeful.
I know.
Right? This year I'm even more hopeful, but we are in the middle of a surge. I'm hopeful because what I said earlier, there's different therapies. There's vaccination, there's booster, and we're always watching the hospitalization rate. So yes, right now this is our immediate future. However, as we move along, as we turn the corner and out of the holidays, hopefully we have more information.
And if your kids are in PE, make sure they're wearing coats and hats and mittens, because we're trying to get them out as much as possible. I know I got a message, but that, they don't have to wear the mask outside, so that's another opportunity. So we're hoping to continue that as well.
Since we're on the topic of COVID, you're going to be hearing about this concept of test to stay in school. This includes out-of-school exposures. So if you are identified and you're an unvaccinated student who is asymptomatic and identified as a close contact and subject to quarantine by Department of Health contact tracers, they contact us and they let us know. You can, again, if you're asymptomatic, for 10 straight days of testing with negative results, return to school daily. That would be a daily test. It would happen in school. Students would take the school bus, of course, masked, go right to the nurse's office, get a test, and wait for the rapid antigen test, and we can get confirmation immediately. If you are a vaccinated student, the test to return to school does not apply. This is not formalized yet, but I feel that you'll be getting a communication from the county that speaks to adopting this policy. And once we learn more and make sure that our process is in place, we could speak to, our anticipated expectation as to when we will engage in tests to return to school.
And
Do we
Brett,
have
just
enough PCR machines for that?
This is not PCR. This would be a rapid antigen test.
and Brett, just so clear that with the not applying to vaccinated individuals, that's full vaccinated, running a full dose. So as kids 5 to 11 start getting vaccinated, they have to be fully vaccinated.
So they'll come to us, and we'll know from Monroe County Department of Health. So we get updates daily on a dashboard that speaks to who this would impact. So if you're fully vaccinated, you wouldn't be on that list. If you're partially vaccinated, that would qualify you, as you just recognized.
I guess the point is, it means that more kids could stay in school if they test negative. So they would come to school even if they would have had to quarantine in the past. They would get tested, and if it's negative, they can stay. So that means that they're not missing as many days of school, and it's in addition to the PCR test. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct.
Right. So it will be a lot of time for our school nurses and others that are trained to do it.
Yeah.
So appreciate that. But I think in the long run, it means that kids will be able to stay in school as opposed to having to quarantine.
Kids will be able to stay in school. And of course, I'm always available for emails and questions as we learn more about it and understand how it will be operationalized in our school district. But it is an undertaking, and I'm really proud of the can-do attitude that's always displayed by all of our staff as we try to keep kids engaged in school as we move through this phase.
I have a question just for clarification. Are you receiving a report of who is getting vaccinated?
We get a confidential report on not who's vaccinated. No, we get numbers, only generals. Is that what your question? We don't know who's vaccinated. Like, I don't have a list of who is vaccinated. I get a what school district they're associated with. I don't know numbers. I don't have names. I don't have any information, identifying information.
So
The Department of Health, when you go get a vaccination, you sign up and you share information with the Department of Health. I don't get, the sign-in sheet. I just get the Fairport Central School District.
But this will depend on people sharing information at the time that they have symptoms, right? So if they want to share that they're vaccinated, then they can go one route. If they don't share it, then they have to go another route, which is either be tested every day for 10 days or stay at home for 10 days, right? They'll have those options, but
Yeah.
it will depend on
I
them
misunderstood the question. I'm
sharing
sorry.
the information. It won't be something we already know.
Oh, so it's for those people who are symptomatic or are within the notification.
If they've been told they have to stay home
If
and
they have
quarantine.
told that they have to stay home and be quarantined, they are working with the Department of Health. And
But
then
they
we're
have the
obligated to
option.
get that information. If you're vaccinated, when you're working with the Department of Health, you share that information, and that gives you a different track to be monitored with.
Okay, got it, thank you.
Sorry.
Getting you out of order. Keep going if you have more.
I'm done with that piece. I really think that it's important that, there's so many things going on this year with all the things going on, reconnecting, restoring, reinforcing, and rebooting. That has been our theme. And if you take a look at our district goals, if you take a look at what we're trying to accomplish with our diversity, equity, and inclusion expectations, how we're continuing to look at our curriculum, recruiting, our family partnerships with all families, reviewing data and policies, and professional learning, not just for our school, but for our community. We will continue to move on that path. So we're making great strides with that. You know, we're back and we're giving and we're bigger in giving in ways that we've always given, in ways that Fairport can only do. This past week before Veterans Day, we've had a lot of Veterans Day celebrations. It was alive and well on our social media. Next month, we're going to be focusing on giving and the things that we've done as a community. But think about $14,000 to the Veteran Outreach Center. That's what this community did, right? If you take a look at the Galasanos Children's Hospital, again, in the same time frame, $16,000 to Galasanos Children's Hospital. Over the past 8 years, the annual event has raised more than $55,000. Our students are learning about what it means to be civic ready, and great contributors to a greater cause. Recently, we shared a perception survey. We had over 4,000 responses asking our students, asking staff and families, how are we doing? How do you feel as you're returning? We had an overwhelming response, a great sample size. All that information is going to go into the reboot of our strategic plan. And that's what we're doing right now. We're analyzing the data, getting our hands around what that means and what it's going to translate with our strategic plan. It was mentioned about our community forums. We had 3 community forums, welcoming and affirming environments, high expectations and rigorous instruction. That was in October. And just last night, we talked about the inclusive curriculum and assessment. Opportunities to engage with community members, to ask questions. Still questions and conversations need to continue. We know that we're going to be doing more events in the future in the name of restoration. Again, that's part of the theme for the year. We need to keep talking. We need to keep engaging with each other. You know, ask questions that maybe we never have answers to, or that we will grapple with, just to do better and be better for each other, because that's part of the restoration piece as we all reconnect and get back engaged in our community. But we'll be talking about our 4th and possibly 5th seminars with our community, because we're really excited to listen and learn in a very constructive, meaningful format. And those opportunities will continue to be had. When you talk about culturally responsive, all means all, okay? It means multiple expressions of diversity. Your race, your social class, your gender, your language, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your religion, and your abilities. That's what culturally responsive means. It's not necessarily about one group of students. It's multiple expressions of diversity. And when we talk about our strategic plan.
Can I just comment on
Oh,
that? Sorry,
please,
I don't mean to overthrow.
Go for it.
I found that an interesting question last night, and something feedback that we need to take both as a board, as administration, that it seemed the impression was it really is about the color of the skin, right? That question that came up, and the response was good, but if that's the impression, then I think we can still do a better job of talking about that. It's not, it's all means all, right? So I'm sorry, I shouldn't keep looking at you, but you answered the question, Tanya, last night. But I did find that interesting. Okay, if that's a perception that's out there, then let's make a note of it and make sure we're doing a better job. I thought the books that were out there helped give that sense, but regardless, and I don't know if that's just the human nature of it, that perhaps the easiest one is the color of our skin, but it really is everything, the social class, right? The languages, and we have still 23 different languages in our schools, you know, religion and abilities, all those things are part of it where we can perhaps communicate that a little better than we have.
And our community has become incredibly diverse through the years. And I think it's important to recognize that impacts the classroom environment. And we have an obligation to study and have these conversations so we can have conversations, lean into conversations where we can all grow, listen, and learn. Those are the themes. And it takes time, it takes repetition, it takes a commitment to a greater purpose. And that greater purpose is humanity. That greater purpose lies in the board's vision, beliefs and expectations. You talk about the Board of Education core beliefs. In 2014, this core belief statement was written. The Board of Education has been talking about doing something different with their core beliefs, moving forward and revamping these core beliefs to fit where we are as a community today. So as we talk about rebooting our strategic plan, you're going to see conversations about a different set of core beliefs that align to our expectations and standards. You're going to see us talking about accountability and being transparent with important measures for the board's expectations. What trends does the board see as important? What are the best types of data that we need to compare to determine our opportunities and challenges and strengths? So as we reboot our strategic plan, we're going to get very technical in measuring our growth and being accountable to our growth relative to our work. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but I want you to see how this is sort of being set up. Our administrators are starting to dig into this now. The board was able to see this a couple different times at workshops and learning about the value of strategic planning, but you're going to see the whole child is still at the core of who we are. You're going to see the culturally responsive framework alive and well. And then it's about our priorities and focus areas. In these big red flags that are here, wholly Fairport, right? Wholly about the whole child, social emotional wellness, student voice, access and equity, community engagement, because we have a dynamic, caring community that we need to wrap our programs and students around. We need to meet students where they are, continue with our expansive programming that is second to none, that gives students so many authentic learning experiences, civic engagement, Board Member Cardona was speaking about, and how do we continue to intentionally give students opportunities to be civically engaged and be better for each other and our community, to continue with our democracy, our great democracy. World-class teaching and learning, focusing on the art and craft of teaching, personalized learning environments and career readiness. These are things that you're going to start hearing and seeing us refine, bringing our district administrators into the conversation, and then eventually our staff as we roll this out. The idea of a coherent curriculum, so no matter what school you go to, you are reading, writing, listening, and thinking, and practicing important critical life skills. Every teacher has their own style. We want to always respect that, but what we teach is important, because when it comes to equity and making sure that every student has great opportunities, that level of coherence needs to be seen throughout our programming. Of course, facilities planning, that's exciting. We're looking forward to talking more about that in the future and putting that back into our strategic plan, making sure that we're being fiscally sound with efficient operations. And this concept of environmental sustainability, you're going to continue to hear about, and how can we invest in resources to make sure that we are preserving and conserving for the future. It starts during budget season as well. These are the budget goals that were confirmed last month. I'm really proud of the fact that this board sets priorities, sets expectations with clarity and purpose regarding educational programming, fiscal sustainability, facilities planning, and now we added conservation and sustainability. Again, board is listening, taking feedback in, and I'm looking forward to creating a budget that creates a story that's unique to our Fairport Central Schools. And I'm not going to steal the thunder of our construction team that is here tonight, but that's exciting. We have so many wonderful things happening. This is something that we want to continue to celebrate. There's incredible improvements, giving our students the best learning environments, giving our staff quality teaching spaces so they could be the best practitioners. So we'll be hearing from our construction team. That's all I have. I'm really grateful. Happy Thanksgiving. I appreciate everybody. I appreciate the voice from our community. I appreciate our board's wonderful service and incredible efforts of our staff and our amazing students.
Thank you, Brett. Amazing superintendent.
Oh, thank you.
I could do an amendment to the agenda. We'll hear from you, Mr. Stevens, here shortly, but I'm just wondering if we, just looking at our construction people who have been sitting here for quite a while, maybe just quickly rearranging and allowing them to do their presentation right after the treasurer report. Is that okay with everyone? We'll just
I think so.
rearrange that so you guys don't have to keep sitting here. I can't believe we're already an hour, 45 minutes into this tonight, so thank you for hanging out. But Mr. Stevens, if you'll do the treasurer's report for us.
Okay, thank you and good evening. Tonight we have the treasurer investment update for the month of September of 2021. We had a beginning general fund cash balance of 44.3 million, cash receipts for the month of 22.6 million, disbursements at 13.6 million for an ending cash balance in the general fund of 53.2 million. Of the 53.2, approximately 52.6 of that is invested in a mix of money market and insured cash sweep CDARS accounts overall. In terms of revenues, expenses, and looking at last year overall, very consistent, 76.1 million of revenue recognized as earned. We do book the tax receipts as earned revenue. That cash does flow in throughout the months of September and October and then made whole in April. And then expenses, very similar at $22.5 million this past September. And that is the update and report for the month of September.
Anybody have questions about that before we? No? Okay, thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Then let's skip down to the presentation or capital improvement project and come on down, gentlemen, if you would.
We have our friends from Campus Construction here, Kevin, Kevin Arlett, to share where we are with our project.
Yep, so tonight's presentation takes a look at the work here at the high school over the month of October. Oh.
Does it work? I turned it off. Yeah, there you go, Cap. Thank you.
So just looking at the overall financials, we won't run through each line item here, but these are the different components that make up the total referendum of $56,750,000. So focusing in over here at the high school, based on contractor pay applications, we're just over 21% complete with the project. We're currently tracking just over $223,000 in pending project issues. Through the month of October, the district has approved just shy of $211,000 in change orders, leaving us $3.2 million left in the contingency, and we've just touched the contract allowances. So looking ahead, as far as construction activities here at the high school, down at the kitchen and cafeteria, we're completing the installation of stone subbase, wire mesh, and vapor barrier for concrete pours. We've accomplished the first pour, which took place on the west side of the cafeteria. We're working our way over to the east side. We've got that pour lined up for tomorrow. And then once we're completed with that, we'll be, switching up to the second floor. We're completing the drywall work, starting finishes in that area, and then a masonry patch that we have at the new classroom from the existing courtyard. And then on site, we're continuing installation of the stormwater chamber system, along with relocating the existing dugouts, which we'll see in the photos here. So here's a look inside the kitchen cafeteria. Again, that's stone subbase. This is on the west side. And you can see that wire mesh and vapor barrier going down. And here is the plumber, the directional boring. Again, this is the new grease interceptor, and that tank is out on the southern courtyard. And here's a look at some of the electrical infrastructure going in. And again, the area, if you can, just to the right of those conduits there is what we'll be pouring tomorrow. And then moving up to the second floor, starting to take shape with the framing work. You'll see the drywall going up now. And again, we're working on finishes in this space. And then here is the north courtyard. This turns into the mechanical penthouse, framing going around that. Had a couple of cranes out here over Veterans Day, putting up the rooftop equipment, taking advantage of the days off.
That's a big deal. Can you explain why that's a big deal?
Yeah. First and foremost, that a lot of planning goes into that. Obviously, we always like to do it on a weekend when the building's emptied, but it typically involves that craning company coming out a couple of days beforehand, especially with how we were able to maneuver that crane onto the back side of the building, measuring out reaches, making sure that we had all the weights adjusted for all of that. It's definitely a lengthy process.
So it
like-
needs to be, when there's issues with the HVAC or the mechanical components, this is where you're servicing that, right? You don't hear the sounds in the building when this is complete because it's on the roof.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. So once the unit gets set up on the roof, the HVAC contractor makes his connections there. Then our temperature controls contractor that kind of handles, how that control system operates to make sure it's as efficient as possible. They make sure that system is, you're not hearing that
But we've
loud
had those
rumbling.
systems. We've had those systems on the inside of our buildings, and that creates quite the sound noise when it's not on top of the roof. So that's why I'm excited about that.
Yeah.
So, just speaking from past principaling, sorry, I'm kind of excited. But.
And here's a look at the relocated dugouts wire mesh in forms. Again, these are over at the JV fields. And then over at the multi-purpose field, this is on the west side of the field. This is the stormwater chamber system. Essentially, you've got drainage piping running around the perimeter of your field that is collecting the water on that field, taking it over to this chamber system, and then dissipating that out into the retention ponds. And you can see some of that perimeter drainage here now.
Another big deal to the community members who live behind that area as well, and to our athletes who will be enjoying that, to our PE classes that will be enjoying that. This was a major point of design and undertaking.
Yep, this space is really starting to take form, and you'll see that with the time-lapse video here. And here's another shot of the just some more drainage material going in. Again, this is the west side of the cafeteria, spreading out that stone subbase. Remember the previous month we had a video of the plumber getting all of his sanitary piping down below, backfilled. This is the next step. You'll start to see them throw down wire mesh and vapor barriers. And then are there any questions?
First of all, the music, killer. I'm sure I've asked this before, and I apologize for the repetition, but the 6.1% out of the contingency budget that you spent so far, is that something we're a level at this point of the project that we're comfortable with, should be at?
Yep,
Yeah.
we feel really comfortable with what we've spent so far. Getting through the gut of the kitchen cafeteria, the first couple of classrooms. I mean, we still have a lot more up on that second floor science corridor, but where we stand right now is very good.
Thank you.
How's our timeline? We hear about supply chain shortages. We hear about, all those factors that influence, the economy. Is that impacting our work here?
Not as of yet. The schedule was built to be very accommodating to contractors to be able to get their hands on materials. One being the HVAC equipment. Our contractor got his submittal in for all of his rooftop equipment, air handlers, pretty close to right after he got the signed contract executed. And he actually has received all of his air handlers, and his boilers are on his way. Now, that's not to say something can't happen or change, and we continually to check with contractors every week at our foreman and PM meetings to what's changed since last week, what is there a shortage on a driver or what have
Gotcha.
you, but so far we've been doing very well.
Labor as well?
I'm sorry?
Labor as well?
Yeah. Really haven't had too many issues. Labor, it's really been some of those material equipment. Scheduling concrete's been very difficult. Again, another driver shortage there. But we should be, knock on wood, done with all of our concrete pours for the kitchen cafeteria by the beginning of December.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Love seeing the progress.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes. Okay, back up on to our follow agenda as outlined. The consent calendar, which I remind people, unless you want to talk about something specifically, this is not a discussion action item. It's just as is. Hope everybody's able to review what's in there. So I need a motion to approve the consent calendar. Joyce? Second, Marty? All in favor? Any opposed? Hearing seen none. 7-0. Thank you. Personnel actions. 5A, instructional. Motion to approve the following instructional staff actions as recommended by the superintendent. I won't read all them there, but it's a list. Erica, first, second. Joyce? Questions or comments here? Recognize and wish Doug the best. We know he's not here with us tonight, also on quarantine. Hope he's recovering and doing well. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Erica and then Joyce. Sorry, Pam. I'll try to speak better into the microphone. Any questions? No? All in favor? 7-0. Next is the non-instructional and civil service. Motion to approve. Marty, second. Erica? Questions here? Comments? No? All in favor? 7-0. Salaries of personnel not covered by collective bargaining agreement. A motion to approve that agreement that's in the administrative content. Joyce, second. Marty? Okay. Questions about this agreement? If so, we probably need to go into executive session. So, hearing none. Okay. All in favor? 7-0. Athletics. Motion to approve the following athletic staff actions. Mary Caitlin first. Second, Brian. Questions, comments here? All in favor? Any opposed? None. 7-0. And a final memorandum of agreement related to the PCR clinic supervision, which is new and additional responsibilities and staff time. Motion to approve the agreement. Okay, Joyce and Marty. All in favor? None opposed. 7-0. Is this better, Pam? Okay, very good. We did the presentation already, so takes us to this board discussion action items. We have an incomplete team application. Motion to approve an incomplete team application. Erica, first. Second, Joyce. Everybody familiar with this? Yes? Yep, for multiple years. I think the third year. We should, right? But yeah, I just always love seeing these two, knowing that some districts are smaller and this gives them an opportunity to compete in ways that they might not be able to. So, all in favor? Any opposed? None? 7-0. So I'm not sure where we put it, Pam. I'm going to go with the 1514 amended item. So a policy 1514 as redlined. It was separated out to make this, it's single read only. We won't have a second read on this. Isn't that the motion you made? Oh, you just made to bring it out. Got it. Okay, right. So we have a motion for one read on policy 1514, which was discussed at the workshop, for anybody who may be wondering why we're able to do this now. Do you have a second on that? Mary Caitlin, second. Questions, discussion? No? All in favor? Aye. Does that work? Do I have another motion that's needed here that Pam? That's why I thought we'd bring it. I think we're okay, right? But minor correction if not. Okay, then the rest of the first reads back to the normal agenda, policy 1120, 1110, and 1510. Motion to accept the first reading of those three policies. Damon, the second. Erica, questions, comments about any of these and the red line changes?
One thing we need to update is 1510. Under the recording section, the Erie 1 BOCES suggested language we talked about in policy, to delete our 1510 language and put in the recorded meetings language from Erie 1. It was just much more streamlined, and it's in our board docs under administrative content if anybody wants to check it out.
Oh, different than the one that's showing under the public content, you're saying?
Correct. The public
Right.
content is our marked up version. The Erie 1 BOCES provides us lots of policy examples and that different districts had used. And so at policy, we had talked about using the language in the Erie 1 BOCES under the recording meetings, if you scroll down.
Yep.
It's just a little more concise and tight. So if we could make that change before our second read,
Okay.
if everybody's okay with it.
Well, so right, because we have the red line, which is different than the one under administrative content of the Erie 1 BOCES red line,
Correct.
green line, or whatever you call it, because it's in
Yeah.
green there. But so we want to be using, I think you're suggesting we use the one under the administrative content Erie 1 BOCES.
Correct.
Okay, so that is what we are approving for this first reading. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? 7-0. Second reading, we don't have any policies in second reading, so next month we will, the ones we just approved in first reading. School-sponsored field trips, I think everybody got notice that there was a second one added late in the day today for approval. So we have two from Northside, one from Martha Brown. A motion to approve these field trips. Marty, second. Brian. Questions, comments about these field trips? There was a clarification, Mary Caitlin, you know about, right?
Oh, yeah, I can add that. The Martha Brown field trip, there's just an error on the form. It said that students provide their own transportation. We are going to bus them. It is during a school day. 67 families don't have to pick up and drive, so we are covered on that. I just wanted to talk about the Northside field trip. So my girls on the run got to participate. Some of them already got to participate in this field trip. And just their faces coming to practice in that day and telling me how they worked on the Challenger and they talked with real astronauts. And the one said, "Have you ever talked to a real astronaut in your whole life?" And I was like, "I haven't." That's a pretty great opportunity. So the joy and excitement the field trips are bringing back in, it's just very wonderful to have them back.
And this had always been a favorite and had to go away for a few years while they looked for a replacement of where the Challenger now is. So thankfully it's back because it was always an amazing experience.
It's
So.
in the old former Kodak Park. Yep, it's a great facility. Looking forward to getting you as a board there, because I think you'd thoroughly enjoy it.
You can talk to an astronaut, Mary Caitlin. Any other questions about these field trips? All in favor? Any opposed? None. 7-0, and I got off the agenda. And school fundraisers. Motion to approve the fundraisers as have been provided to us. 3 different schools: Martha Brown, Joanna Perrin, and Fairport High School. Marty, second. Brian. Questions about any of these fundraisers?
So a question I have is, we have a lot of, particularly at the high school, we have fundraisers talking about, school trips and so on. If a family is unable to fundraise and needs support, do we have that availability in our district?
Yeah, we have many different resources from, we've canvassed our PTAs, we've canvassed the actual tour companies that we work with. We have a systematic contribution to what we call the Joey Fund, which is a fund that supports students in need. We have an active system. It's not haphazard. Our mental health staff, our social workers, our principals, our staff, our teachers are highly in tune with the needs of our students. So it's something I'm proud of, that we do all we can to get every single child access. And we have great partners and community members. We've solicited local businesses, Rotaries, so on and so forth. So it's embedded in our process, so it's, not, based upon who's there or who's not.
And speaking from experience with Northside PTA, I know Northside, we did a lot of work with that, and credit to Aaron Moretter, who's every student has a chance, every student has access to things like that, so.
It does represent, I know their contributions to the Joey Fund, for example, over the years have been astounding and wonderful, but also it had been stressed in the most recent years, if I recall correctly, right? It just, the need that has grown in the community as our free and reduced lunch, as we watched that grow, it was represented also in those who needed some assistance in order to participate and all that we want to offer everybody. So, but grateful for the community that supports that, because these funds have been, and the fundraising has always been so positive. It's still astounding to me. Other questions or comments about that? All in favor? No opposed, 7-0. Okay, that takes us to board comments before executive session. Are there any additional comments people would like to share, other than a happy Thanksgiving to everyone, to the community? If they're traveling, safe travels to all.
I just thought last night was really terrific, and I appreciate everybody who put that exhibit together. That was a lot of work for a lot of people, I'm sure, and it was very well laid out so everyone could walk through and see the books that everyone has been hearing about, and see lists, and so much information was available, and the teachers were there to speak to it and answer questions. And I really felt that it was really an excellent evening, and I know a lot of work went into it, and I appreciate everybody who worked on it.
It was represented in the uncomfortableness at times, right? I think people were uncomfortable in some things, but able to ask their questions both individually as well as in, again, the Q&A session that was open to everybody. Again, it exhausted the hands that were raised. I was impressed, but hearing that those opportunities don't exist. Last night it existed as it has in the past, and those who were there were able to get all their questions asked, not all answered, but we're working on the answers for some of those. So,
I was really sorry I missed it last night. I just got home late from a trip. But I was really glad to hear that there was extensive Q&A, and I know that for all 4 of those sessions there's been Q&A time, but I'm glad there was more time yesterday to really go through the questions, so that's great. And the last thing I'll say is I did read the update, Brett, and I went to the Wakelet, and it's really impressive, all the different things that are happening in the district, and it's exhausting to really think about participating in everything that's happening. But at the elementary, middle, and high school level, there's just a lot of initiatives out there that the kids are fully participating in. And I know somebody close to me went on the Boston trip, and it was a huge success, and hundreds of kids had a great time. So great to see those traditions are back.
I'd like to echo that. The seniors had a great time, and I thank you for letting us go over and steer.
Thank you. That made my night.
They had a fantastic time, and just to have an opportunity like that was during this COVID time was just great. And I don't know of any other district that has done anything for their seniors like across the country. Of friends, Facebook and stuff. So thank you for that opportunity. It's unique and great that they've been able to do it already. And the Washington trip too. I know. For those that got to go to that.
we just need to find out who's in charge of the weather, it sounds like. Well, great. Any other comments? Thank you. I will express to you, my fellow board members, my appreciation for working with you since we missed in October, but I am truly grateful, and this is my 10th year. I've been influenced by all of you for the positive in my life. I think it's changed me quite a bit, and all for the positive. I am grateful for the service that the community's given me this opportunity, but I really am grateful for your dedication, the passion associated from each of you. So thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to all. We will be going into executive session. There is no intention of making any decisions afterwards. So when we come out, we will also adjourn immediately. So thank you for all who attended tonight. A motion to enter into executive session. Mary Kaylin, second. Joyce. All in favor? Okay, at 8:42. Thank you, everyone.